In today's tutorial, we're going to learn how to make a cherry blossom. So I've got 28 gauge wire and I've got two different types of cutters. I've got carnation cutters, which are these two here, and the other one is just a 5-petal push. It's up to you which one you use. They'll both give us a really similar effect. And I've also got some of these stamens that I think are possibly PME. Now we're going to take 5 for each flower because we're going to fold these over, so that'll actually make 10. So you want to fold it in the middle and get some wire and wrap that around the middle. Now this is going to keep it quite tight and enable us to fold the stamens up so that they're able to stick out of the flower. So once you've lifted your wire over, you're going to then twist it, and that's going to hold it into place. And then I've just got some white floral tape, and we're just going to wrap that around the wire first, and you're going to bring it up to, I would say, maybe about 1/3 of the way up the stamens, and then you're going to go back down the rest of the wire. And this is just going to tape them in place. It's going to stop any from falling out, and it's going to keep them upright. And you're going to do this with all 3 flowers. Now I've chosen to do 3 flowers, 2 buds. You always really want to work in odd numbers. So I'm painting the ends of these yellow. I've just got some dust, and I'm just running that over the edge just to make it yellow. And then we're going to paint the rest of the stamen in sort of like a pinky reddy colour. So I've got some dusky pink, and I've just got a tiny little bit of red, and that's what I'm going to put on there. And you're going to do the same for all 3 of your stamens, unless you're doing obviously more flowers, and then you would do this step first. And it's quicker to do it all together than it is to break off and do this and then go on to the next one. So I've just got some pale pink fondant, and I'm just going to roll it out quite fat and chunky onto the flower pad that I've got. And you want to use the 3rd from the smallest, so 2nd biggest, 3rd smallest. And then we're just going to roll that out quite thinly and then cut it out with our carnation cutter. Using the same pad, placing it back in, we're just going to run over the edges with the ball tool. Now they need to be quite thin, and we don't want to really lose too much of the shape. And then I've got my veiner, and I'm just putting some rough lines on and putting a hole in the middle. Now wire's going to go through there. I've used a tiny little bit of water just to stick it in, and you're going to twist it round quite slowly, and then you're going to play with that nib, and you're just going to bring the nib down onto the wire, so you can see that I'm twisting it down onto the wire so it comes thinner, and that's going to hold it into place. Now if you want to, with a scalpel, you can just bring those petals in a little bit, and you can start to flick your stamens out so they spread and they're not just in one clump. So I'll show you how to do another one. The thinner you roll it, the better. So this was a thinner one that I did. So just on the mat to get that little bit of a nibbing at the bottom, and then you're just going to use a really small brush just to roll it out quite thinly. Always rolling kind of away from the nipple end, because we don't want to affect that shape in any way. And back into the spot, and we're just going to run our ball tool over the edge. And this is just to thin out the petal and maybe give it a bit of movement. And then with the veiner tool, we're then going to do lines just on the petals, just to give them a bit of, so it's not so flat looking, a bit of movement. A hole in the top, and then just threading your wire through. Just a tiny little bit of water. And as you're pushing it up, you kind of want to twist. Always want to be twisting. So once you've done that, you should kind of have something that looks like these two. Now I think you can see the difference. One's a bit thicker than the other. So I think the one on the right is slightly thicker and this one is thinner. It looks a lot better when it's a thinner flower, it looks more delicate. So you can see the middle is already quite dark, but we're going to dust that up later and make it look a bit more darker. So there's our 3 that we've made. Don't worry about the length of the wires at this point because we will tidy them up later. So for the buds, I've taken the same wire, I've hooked it over at the end, and you're just going to roll a teardrop shape and then put in 4 lines across the top, kind of like a cross. And you're going to do this for the buds as well, for the rest of the buds. You could use the same cutter and wrap those leaves around if you wanted to make the flower look like it was opening up, but for this tutorial I just wanted to keep it quite simple. They're great to use as like a little filler flower. So once you've done that, we're just going to go ahead and tape the wire up. So always tape them up individually first. I like to use white floral tape for 2 reasons. One, if it was going on a white cake, I would tend to leave the floral tape white. But if I was going to put it on a different coloured cake or I wanted it to look more natural, I can then dust it up, and I prefer the look of it dusted than when it's plain. So now we're going to go ahead and dust up the flowers. So again, we've got the pink with a tiny bit of red, and you're going to really concentrate on those lines that we've put in first. So just dusting down the lines and bringing the dust from the centre of the bud at the top down onto the rest of the flower. You only need a tiny little bit, you don't want to be too heavy with this one, and I always find a bit of an angled brush is better. And then with the flowers, you're dusting in the very middle, quite a deep colour, and then bringing that dust out slightly and then just dusting the edge of the petals. And then you're going to dust the back as well. You're going to do the same process for all the petals that you've got. So again, just in the middle, bringing it out slightly, and then the edges of the petals. Now once you've done all the dusting, I always recommend to steam the flowers. This stops the dust from falling onto the cake, and it just makes sure that the dust is set to the flower. So I've taken some, I think this is moss green, and I'm just going to brush this under the underside of the flowers to act as sort of like a calyx, just for ease, and it's simple, and it saves a lot of messing about with, you know, small little cutters. You're just going to bring that down on the bottom of the bud onto the back of the flower. So you can see I'm just brushing it up and down. Because nobody really sees the back of the flowers, it doesn't really you know, make a difference really, so you might as well save the time by just dusting it on. So now we're going to wire all these together. So you're always starting with your buds first, and so you're just going to twist some tape on. So I didn't realise that I was out of shot here, but you can see I've just put the 2 buds together, and then I'm just going to look at where I want my flowers to go. So just pulling it out slightly, and I'm just twisting the wire but pulling it at the same time to make sure that it all sticks together. Once you've added 1 flower on, you maybe do about 3 or 4 turns of the florist wire, and that's going to hold everything into place. You can always bend them out once they're done. Be sure to make sure that you brush out the stamens as well, because you want them to kind of spread out rather than be stuck together. So once you're happy with the arrangement, you can pull them out any way that you want. You can trim off any excess wire if it's not needed. So with this one, I'm going to dust it brown just to show you the look. Personally, I would have left it white, but for this tutorial, I'll just show you what it looks like when it's dusted brown, as that how it is in real life. So you're just going to dust in between the flowers, just with a little bit of brown. You don't want to be too heavy-handed. If you wanted it a bit darker, I would just put in a bit of black into the brown. Once you've finished, you should have something that looks like this. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please leave a comment down below or click the thumbs up button. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, please click the links on the screen now. Thanks for watching.